You know, every Chinese gacha game I've played has always introduced that one faction based on its history, and it gives it a ton of focus, coming back to it year after year to make sure you remember it and that you love this fictional China. Genshin has Liyue, Star Rail has the Luofu, and Arknights has Yan. From being one of the two regions focused on during the events of the reunion arc to becoming the centerpiece for the unfolding events of the Sibling series. It is undeniably one of the regions with the most focus in the game. And from the lack of all 12 siblings currently in Rhodes Island, I doubt that's going to change anytime soon. But a discussion on Yan is not why we're here today. Its time will come eventually, I'm sure. Today, I want to give you the basis to jump headfirst into the Sibling saga by recounting to you the tale of the siblings that currently exists in the game, so that you too may be prepared for the Rice Woman gaming that is currently on the global server. So, what have we got to cover today? Well, we got 4 events to cover, 2 of which are available in the side story tab, complete with record restore and everything. One of which is sitting in the archive, and it is of, shall we say, questionable importance. And the 4th one is, if this video comes out on time, which it did not, currently rerunning on the global server. Ancient Forge, Who is Real, Invitation to Wine, and Where Vernal Winds Will Never Blow. Now, are all of these events perfect? No, but I'm pretty sure they have plenty of fans. Me personally, well, I could use the beginning of Who is Real as an alternative to a sleeping pill, but I was able to suffer through it, and by the time the action picked up towards the midpoint of the event, I did start enjoying it. Overall, I enjoyed Invitation to Wine, but like Who is Real, it had a slow start. It definitely wasn't my favorite event that came out that year, but it was an improvement, which I can at least say that every Sui event so far has been an improvement on what comes before. Vernal Winds is my favorite of the Sui events so far. The story it tells is just more complete compared to the others in my opinion. Ancient Forge is a bit of a weird event to cover, but it is very much an important setup piece for the Sui Sibling storyline. To not bog us down later with the explanations, what do you need to know to understand the Sui events? I will try to keep it brief. The Sui Siblings. Arknights showing some of its Warhammer Fantasy inspirations just a little bit with the siblings. They are very much like the dragon rulers of Cathay, a family of dragons descending from one super dragon god. But they are not the offspring of the super dragon god. The Sui Siblings are 12, now 11, fragments of the original dragon god Sui. These include Nian, Dusk, Ling, Chang'e, Shu, Wang, Ji, and another Ji, who is dead. Each of these fragments hold a part of the original Fernmut's power, and some of the most powerful individual characters we've met. Each of the Sui events serve to build up one of them as an introduction, except Shu's event, which also introduces Ji, and I suppose Wang, who's been slowly built up as the main antagonist across multiple Sui events, starting with Invitation to Wine. So who is Sui? Well, Sui is a Fernmut. The Fernmut are the gods of terror, and a very fascinating subject that this video doesn't have time for. Luckily, there is a super cool dude who has just made a video about these gods, so click the card if you want to know more about them. But all you need to know is that around 1,000 years ago, an event known as the Great Hunt occurred, and the mighty god fragmented its power to aid the people of Yan with hunting down its fellow Fernmut. Millions died, but it was a successful hunt, and following its completion, the god was permanently fragmented so that it would not pose a threat to Yan. Now, after centuries of separation, some of the Sui siblings wish to reform the god to take vengeance on humans for the death of one of the Sui siblings, Ji. Well, maybe that was Wang's original reason, but only time will tell if his love for his sister will actually be his motivation for his path of destruction. A question that is answered in Cure People's Souls, by the way. Nian is against his plan, so obviously has to get all the good dragons together to prevent this, as they are rather partial to being individuals now. Yan and its government has a large part to play in this, so obviously the Yanese government has factions in place to deal with the Sui problem, and as such, the Sui regulators have been set up. An entire part of the government of Yan purely dedicated to dealing with the surviving Fernmuts. Primarily though, as you can imagine by the name, they focus on the Sui fragments. Zole is our main point of reference for this group, and for the most part takes a passive role in dealing with the siblings. They know just how dangerous they can be, and so, as long as they aren't hurting anyone, they are more than willing to let them peacefully exist. Now, however, the threat of demons from the north and sea bones from the south are motivating some within the Yanese government to deal with the Sui once and for all. So, the regulators walk a fine line of using the Sui for the betterment of Yan and protecting Yan from the threat they pose. And with that, I'm pretty sure you have all the basics of the lore needed to understand a summary of these events. So let's get to it. Ancient Forge asks the question, what if a god made a movie? It is one of the more interesting events that Arknights has ever given to us actually. It's not peak fiction by any means. It's not even close to it. I wonder if I would even call it good. It is quite literally a B-movie plot about Nian's attack on Lungmen. Now, when I say that, you are probably assuming I'm exaggerating or being a little disingenuous. No, I am being 100% literal. The events of Ancient Forge tell us the tale of Nian and Lava writing a script for a movie Nian wishes to record for a Rhodes Island movie night. In it, all of Lungmen prepares for the arrival of Nian, an ancient and powerful being that strikes fear into the hearts and minds of those who know of its existence. Fumizuki, not Wei, is in charge of Lungmen. Chen is still superintendent of the LGD. Hoshiguma is a mob boss. Wei and the Rat King are retired LGD officers. Swire and Lin are training to become LGD officers, and Amiya and Rhodes Island are assisting in taking down Nian. A pretty interesting, I guess, spin on the world of Arknights. Our most interesting characters are of course Lava and Nian. Nian has ridden Lava as a badass hunter of Vernal, learning ancient Chinese secrets of taking down these monsters, being able to cut space with her dagger, and her fire arts being more like Tallulah's than little AoE explosion. So yeah, Nian buffed Lava so that she could actually compete with herself in this movie script. Nian, however, ensures that her self-insert always gets the last laugh, being a villain so overpowered that she has no problem taking care of all of Lungmen without really breaking a sweat. From melting buildings with her flames, to creating an entire terracotta army of soldiers that are not only able to be made rapidly, they can even use arts. She even ends the movie by introducing Dusk as the villain for Ancient Forge 2, the hit sequel to an unfinished movie. So, the event is silly and doesn't take itself that seriously, but it does set up quite an interesting amount of stuff that will be important in later Sui sibling lore, even if Nian doesn't tell Lava that's what she's done. So, let's run through that. Number 1. Nian has siblings just as powerful as her. Pretty obvious. Number 2. Nian and her siblings are effectively gods. Number 3. Nian and her siblings' power are entirely separate from ours. Number 4. Nian has a power called Ancient Forge that gives her the ability to effectively forge divine weapons and constructs. Number 5. The Vernal, or at least the Sui fragments, are startled by firecrackers. This will be relevant in Who Is Real. And number 6. Nian loves two-step firecrackers as a final plot device. Once again, this will be relevant in Who Is Real. So yeah, overall, this one would be a skip if you just want to look at relevant stories to the Sui storyline. But I think it deserves its place in this reading order because it's mercifully short one, and it is a pretty enjoyable read, especially as an introduction to Nian, who, despite being as dangerous as the character she portrays herself as in the movie, is generally just a pretty laid-back individual. Who Is Real tells us the story of Dusk, and I suppose you could consider it the real start of the Sui storyline. Technically, it is a sequel to Ancient Forge, as Dusk was set up as the next villain of Ancient Forge 2, so it is technically falling into Nian's B-movie canon. Nian tasks Lava and crews to travel to Mount Huichi to find her missing sister Dusk, giving them a protective charm to aid them in their search for her. While on this journey, the gang runs into one Mr. Nutting, definitely one of my favorite Arknights characters, and not one who puts me to sleep with his dialogue. After saving him from an accident, the unlikely trio make their way up the mountain, where they discover a lone cabin, and upon entering this cabin, find themselves within Poshan Village, where the question of who is real will be answered. Title drop, roll credits, etc, etc. Their memories are a little messed up from this, so they don't question how they got there initially, but after looking at the protective charm Nian gave them, the three realize they are somehow, some way, in an entirely different part of the world, and not the cabin they were meant to be entering. And so they begin to question the reality of everything around them. Luckily for them, a wandering monk happens to have stumbled her way into Poshan village as well, Saga, and she tells them about how this world they are currently in is actually a painting. Saga takes them to meet the most knowledgeable person in the village, Dawn, who seems to be the only resident aside from them who knows that this reality isn't real. Dawn, however, is unable to explain everything to them as she wishes to avoid angering the painter. Despite being on its surface a tranquil utopia, the village is under constant attack from ink spirits who kill, eat, and maim the inhabitants of the painting, as well as destroying the village. This of course traumatizes the trio, but the very next day, following this destructive attack, everything is reset to the way it's meant to be, with only the non-inhabitants and Dawn remembering what happened. So yeah, Dusk has effectively created a time loop for anyone who falls into her paintings. Dawn offers a little help by revealing the weakness of the ink spirits. Firecrackers. Told you Nian hid some truth in her scripts. This allows Lava, Cruz, and Mr. Nothing to repel the ink spirits while Saga meditates on the nature of the world. And Dusk is none the wiser to their intentions until Nian's name is mentioned by Lava. Thanks to her meditation, Saga is able to wake up from the painting's dream and meet with Dusk. Dusk gives Saga a look into the life of the head monk of her monastery. Dusk on a whim saved him before and then watched over him from afar as he continued his journey across Terra before returning to Higashi to found the monastery that Saga was raised at. Saga is satisfied by her meeting with Dusk, and before she leaves has something to show her, the charm Nian gave Lava. This pisses Dusk off, who punishes those trapped in her world by forcing them to see their worst lives. Saga sees many alternative versions of herself, her skin basically. Mr. Nothing gets to see his life leading up to his death, and Cruz is forced to see the tragedy that befell Beagle. Lava is, however, trapped in an infinite void of darkness, unable to find the others. But it's too late. Nian has found Dusk. She first retrieves Nothing and Cruz from their punishment before finding Lava. She tells Lava the story of the Sweet and the Great Hunt of Yam, a little gift for helping her find her sibling. And finally, Nian confronts her little sister. A battle beyond mortal comprehension, where the two battle through multiple painted worlds as the two discuss what should be done about Sui. Nian, of course, wants to oppose the return of Sui, but Dusk thinks it's too much hassle. Unable to convince Dusk, Nian unveils her trump card, a two-step firecracker that burns down the painted worlds that they are battling within and returns them to the real world. Like I said, Nian's a fan of that little plot device. The two are about to start battling for real after this, but Saga makes her way out of the painted worlds. This allows Nian to call Dusk out and claim the winning spot on an old bet the two had. After this, Dusk is convinced to help Nian in her goal of preventing the revival of Sui and travels with her to Rhodes Island. But why did Dusk create this elaborate painted world? Well, you remember Dawn, right? Well, Dusk once saved Dawn after a catastrophe wiped out the real Poshan village. And following this event, Dusk trained Dawn to be a painter. The two traveled together for quite some time before parting ways. The two were only reunited on Dawn's deathbed. Here, she asked Dusk for one thing only, to recreate the village in one of her paintings. And so she did, with Dusk even resurrecting Dawn within this painting in order to give her a better life. Dusk, despite her unsociable personality, really does care for those around her. So it's no surprise she would join up with Nian, despite their differences. Invitation to Wine. Taking place shortly after the events of Who Is Real, Cruz and Mr. Nothing make their way towards the city of Sangshu, separating from Nian, Lava, and Dusk in order to search for the third oldest of the Sui siblings, Ling. Ling has taken refuge atop the mountains overlooking Shangshu. From there, she has acted as a rather benevolent god, mostly leaving the people to their own devices, while she drinks away the years. However, in times of great crisis, not even catastrophes affect the homes of the people of Sangshu, for despite her reclusive nature atop the mountain, the people of Shangshu have a caring god looking down on them. She's even claimed one of the 18 peaks of the mountains for herself, keeping it hidden from the view of those looking upon the mountain. Although the natives of their region have their suspicions about her presence. Upon arriving in the city, they run into the one and only Li, who has journeyed to Shangshu from Longmen in order to deliver a special package. A small goblet. Their arrival is not peaceful, however, as they immediately become a victim of Du, a local of the area who attempts to steal the package from Li. In order to escape from her, the gang take refuge in Liang Zhon's home, the local magistrate of Shangsu and an old friend of Li's, who commissioned him to acquire the package. Everything is going smoothly so far, but of course things can't keep going that way, and that little goblet is the center of it all. It contains the essence of the Sui, to be specific, the essence of the second fragment of the Sui, Wang. So of course, the Sui regulators are going to have to get involved, allowing for the first appearance of Zhuo Lei and Tai He. The two are initially investigating the events surrounding who is real, but they are more than willing to get involved with this incident. They intend to claim the goblet off of Liang before anything disastrous happens. So, of course, the goblet is stolen by a mercenary, Rhodes Island's very own Black Knight. Black Knight was hired by a different department of the Yan government that opposes the work of the Sui regulators. There's also a whole separate series of events going on involving the Escort Bureau's head Zheng and Shang, a former aggrieved worker, who battle over the goblet to settle old grudges, taking it from the thief Black Knight. So, needless to say, the goblet is causing problems. Even though it is just a fragment, it has begun creating weregeists, little monsters that run around causing chaos. The regulators see this and double their efforts to retrieve the goblet before complete chaos breaks out. Cruz and Nutting assist them in dealing with these creatures, while our beloved Mr. Li begins acting strangely. Having been exposed to the goblet for the longest period of time, Li has been possessed by the spirit of Wang, and is manipulating events for his own pleasure. The growing tensions surrounding the goblet eventually lead all of the involved parties to the peaks of the mountains. Cruz and Mr. Nutting climb the mountain to find Ling, Zule and Tai He climb the mountain to prevent the reunion of the Sui siblings, Shang and Zheng climb the mountain to have an epic mountainside duel, and Mr. Li is along for the ride. Although, yes, he is possessed, but only Ling knows that right now. During the chaos, Neon and Dusk arrive on the scene, putting a stop to the conflict. Dusk traps most of the people on the mountain within one of her painted worlds, save for Zule, Cruz, and Mr. Nutting, and the sisters get to have a little reunion atop the mountain peak. Zole reveals the Grand Tutor's wishes to the Sui siblings here. However, Ling, after finally revealing herself, reveals to Zole that the orders he is carrying is a forgery. This entire event has been set up by Wang, and an avatar of the god Sui descends from the heavens. At the same time, Li is busy playing a game of gold chess against the second brother, all while Ling, Neon, and Dusk defeat the Sui avatar in the real world, forcing Wang to concede to Li. And all's well that ends well, with the Grand Tutor himself making an appearance. And with his leave, the Sui siblings can officially reside at Rhodes Island without any harassment from the Yan government. Not for free, obviously. Ling is fondly remembered by the court for holding back the demons of the north, so she gets a pass. Neon, however, is commissioned by the government to construct a great defensive barrier against the north with millions of her terracotta soldiers to man it. Of course, Neon accepts, so I can imagine she won't be writing movie scripts for a while. But we do get to see her again in Here Are People's Souls, so she has been busy. You'll never guess what event takes place right after Invitation to Wine. Vernal Winds introduces us to the city of Yumen, the heart of Kung Fu in Yan, and the home of the oldest of the Sui siblings, Chongye. This Sui fragment has sealed away his divinity so that he may be immortal like those he surrounds himself with, and changing up the formula of the Sui events, he is introduced at the very beginning. Not only does this give us way more time with the character, but it also allows for us to actually see how the events that take place affect him, unlike his siblings, where their appearance is saved for much later in the event, limiting their role to basically serve as an introduction to the character. That aside, Yumen is preparing for the return of the Sui under the Grand Tutor's guidance. And in addition to that, Chongye is retiring as the Grand Master of the Yan armies. But in order for all this to happen, he must find a successor to his position. As such, many important people from around Yan have arrived in Yumen. The Grand Tutor, the Rat King and Lin, Wei, the Chief of Longmen, General Zhou Zhan Liao, Zulei's father, Liang Zun from Invitation to Wine fame, as well as Ling and of course Chong Ye. Additionally, Waifu and Li have come to Yumen looking for Waifu's father, Tian Pei. Also Du is returning as well, having moved up from gang leader to owning a courier business in Yumen. Yumen is on course for the capital of Yan and is preparing for the Wang Thing Festival, a celebration that celebrates the countless soldiers sacrificed to defend Yumen over the many years of its existence. The city, as a part of this, decided to hold a martial arts tournament, on one hand as an attraction for this festival, and on the other hand to find one worthy of holding the sword Chong Ye has poured his firmament power into. Initially docked with Longmen, Yumen is forced to depart rapidly as a sandstorm catastrophe is about to hit the region, and this traps many important delegates within the city. Nevertheless, the city shall continue on without worry, as they are more than prepared to handle a catastrophe. However, someone has prepared to devastate the city in order to achieve their own goals. The catastrophe messengers have been found dead by Du. Jion has infiltrated the city and stolen Chong Ye's sword, and worst of all, an avatar of a Farenmut has infiltrated the city, Ya. Ya even almost assassinates Wei and the Rat King almost immediately upon entering the city, only being stopped by Chong Ye and Ling coming to their aid. Ya has even fallen in with a group of Farenmut worshippers known as the Shanhai Zong, who terrorized Yumen 20 years ago. As such, General Zhu orders the city to be placed under strict curfew, and a great manhunt is organized to hunt for Ya and her followers. At the same time, Waifu offers to help Du deal with the people who killed her employees. Lin also hopes to aid the forces of Yumen by investigating rumors within the city, and Chong Ye's head disciple, Chu Bai, leads the garrison's soldiers searching for Ya. Ya has stolen the messenger's catastrophe data, and now Yumen is on a race against time to locate it and redirect the city away from its doomed path. Locking down the city has turned the place into a powder keg. The local martial artists are being kept at an arm's length by the general, and their cooperation with the investigation is being refused. Jiyon is also still on the run with Chong Ye's sword and is rescued by Tian Pei. She lays low in a workshop owned by the martial artists of Yumen and wishes to take the sword to her master, but she is being pursued by Zhuolei. Zhuolei and Kubai surround the workshop, believing it to be the center of the Shanhai Zong's activities, and they are ambushed almost immediately by them, so they would appear to be correct. However, it's just the Shanhai Zong pursuing the sword of Chong Ye. Jiyon attempts to escape during this moment, but is cornered by Zhuolei. However, he allows her to take the sword with her to her master's grave, after she promises to return with the sword later. At the same time, Ling uncovers the schemes of the Shanhai Zong. One of Yumen's own martial artists, Meng, is behind it, hoping to overthrow the general because of his harsh policies. He is however not a true member, only using them for his own goals, and as punishment, Ya kills him. However, Meng gives the catastrophe data to Lin before he dies. Because of this, Ya almost kills Lin, if not for the timely arrival of one Chen. However, even with the combined might of Waifu, Chen, Ling, and Chubai, they are incapable of stopping Ya. Only the timely intervention of Tian Pei saves the girls, using his mastery of Kung Fu to defeat Ya and drive her away. He also finally reunites with his daughter. Not that this worthless excuse for a parent deserves his child's love. Li sweeps, "You insufferable furry." Unfortunately, the data reached Yumen's command too late. The catastrophe is unavoidable now, but Yumen shall face it undaunted. The civilians are moved to where the catastrophe shall be weaker to minimize casualties. The Wind Digest, an anti-catastrophe defense measure, is deployed, and all the casters capable of protecting against a catastrophe are placed on duty. Ling even takes over the task of protecting half of Yumen, so all the casters can only focus on one half of the city. This group of casters includes Lin and the Rat King, so they are quite well manned. Ling, however, is more successful than them, but that just shows how powerful Ling is compared to mortals, and she's a proven track record when it comes to handling catastrophes. Although before the catastrophe hits, one more thing must be resolved: Tianpei and Chongye's duel. Tianpei has trained his entire life for this moment, even abandoning his own daughter to become the best martial artist he could be, all to become the strongest under heaven, the greatest martial artist in all of Yan. And he manages to put Chongye on the back foot once in their 10-round battle. But it's not some shonen where that would have been the final round, and Chongye soundly defeats him. Chongye does compliment Tianpei's skills, but he proves to be a mountain Tianpei cannot climb. Ji-Yun reaches her master's grave around this time and is able to present Chongye's sword to her. Following that, she does return the sword to Zhuolei and travel to Yumen with him to meet with Chongye and seek shelter from the catastrophe. As the catastrophe reaches Yumen, the Shanghai Zong attempt their final sabotage. By taking out the casters defending Yumen, the catastrophe will be able to devastate the city. However, the martial artists and soldiers put aside their differences to defend Yumen. Ya, however, planned for this to fail. Her main goal has always been seeking vengeance against the one who betrayed her and their race, the Farenmut Sui. Ya confronts Chongye and berates him about the betrayal of Sui, questioning why he is attempting to become a god of Yan, despite everything that has happened. Ya traps them in a dimension of her own creation, but is unsuccessful in her attempt on Chongye's life, being handily defeated by him. And with all things wrapped up, Yumen survives the catastrophe with minimal damage, all things considered at least, only being grounded for 3 months before it can begin to head to the capital once again. Chongye meets with Ji-Yun and explains the nature of his sword to her, trapping Shou, the firmament within it, and being reborn as Chongye. After just getting the sword back, however, he gives it to Tianpei and instructs him to protect it in his stead, arranging another duel with him in exchange for Tianpei protecting it. Chubai also bids Chongye farewell, heading on her own journey as the quickest NPC to playable character we've had in Arknights, with a Det in Shunfun being the event that took place right after Vernal Winds. And so as Chongye prepares to leave the city of Yumen, he meets up with his brother Wang, promising to defeat him should he drag the people of Yan into his game. And Chongye finally leaves the position of Grandmaster behind him, walking off into the desert, leaving the city of Yumen behind him. He might have given up his role as the Grandmaster of Yan, but his heart is bent on the protection of its people, setting himself up as one of the biggest obstacles Wang will have to overcome in his mission to revive Sui. And that's about it for the Sui events so far. Of course, there is the event Here Are People's Souls, the Farmville simulator, but in order to see that, you're gonna have to find out next time on Dragon Ball Z, because this video is long enough as it is. But don't worry, my review of the event will be the next video out on this channel after this one. So you'll get all the knowledge on this event soon, TM. All you need to know so far is that the Rice Woman is good, and the lore introduced or being built upon in it is quite interesting. My final thoughts on it aren't finalized quite yet, but it's definitely a good read. I'll round this video out with a simple question: what are your thoughts on the Sui storyline, and what direction are you hoping for the events to take? Leave those in the comment if you made it to the end. Y'all be good people, and I'll see you in the next one.